Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with Massar and Matt Miller. Welcome to our audiences across Bloomberg TV, Radio Originals, and our partnership for those folks streaming on YouTube. Carol, I think since we last spoke, the market perking up just a little bit here. The volume is up, and so are the prices.
Yeah, interesting. We're seeing some buying, as you said, in this last hour or so of trading, just kind of rolling over, so just coming off our best levels of the session. Having said that, again, we're seeing outperformance among some of the financial names, 1.7% higher on the KBW Bank Index. I know CPI is our focus tomorrow, Matt, but we got those big banks reporting later on this week.
Yeah, you know, I came in today and the headline was stocks do a whole lot of nothing as traders wait for the CPI tomorrow. But really, the China story, I think, has driven the trade today. China's so important, Carol.
It is important. Don't you forget it.
You know, I guess recommending very strongly that banks ease the terms on property owners has been seen as a very good sign. Maybe a little bit more stimulus yet to come, says state-owned Chinese media company. And as a result, you have NYMEX crude up to almost $75 a barrel.
See, it moves markets, Matt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we talk about sort of the idea of what gets priced in, whether there is maybe a little bit of front running coming into not just the economic reports, but the earnings season itself. There are a lot of folks that we've spoken to on Bloomberg Television. I'm sure you've heard from them on Bloomberg Radio to say this earnings season will be about some of that catch up here with corporate fundamentals and multiples. But a lot of investors seem confident that that catch up will indeed occur. We're looking at right now a Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by about 300 points or about 1% on the day as we get the closing bells here in New York. The S&P 500 up for a second day, up by about 0.7% or roughly about 30 points, pinning the S&P 500 right around 44.38 as we wait for these numbers to settle. The NASDAQ Composite higher by 75 points or 0.5%. And outperformance once again when it comes to, I guess, some of the more cyclical sectors, if you will. The Russell 2000 up 1% on the day. Dow Transports, Carol, up 1.4%.
Yeah, good to point out. And as you dig a little bit deeper into the indices, and we're going to get into some of the movers to the upside, to the downside. But if you look at the S&P 500, most names in that index, more than 400 higher in today's session. Same thing for the NASDAQ, Matt. Most of the names in the index, 71 to be exact, to the upside, 30 to the downside. So we definitely saw a more bullish tone in today's trade and pretty broad-based.
Yeah, it was. I mean, everybody is a winner today, right? We're all special. There are no industry groups that fell, although healthcare is barely keeping its head above water. Energy index doing the best. No surprise there with the big gains in oil. You see utilities, industrials, and real estate sort of leading up the charge there. Financials, as Carol, as you mentioned, also doing well, up more than 1%.
All right, folks, let's get to some of the individual gainers. We've all talked about it today, the Microsoft story. A big court ruling, if you will, in its favor in its move to buy Activision Blizzard. Still has to get through the UK regulatory side of it. But having said that, Activision, no surprise as the target here, really outperforming up more than 10% in today's session, so closing just under $91 a share. Electronic Arts and some of the others in the sector also moving higher as a result. Lucid continuing to move higher, up more than 2%. That while Rivian's 9-day rally, I think, came to an end. I just want to quickly bring it up.
Yes, it did.
It did. Okay. Lucid, though, continuing to forge higher. It's up 9 out of 10 trading days. We're talking about a 50% gain, all since that news of that EV supply chain pack with Aston Martin. JP Morgan, just want to point it out. We talked about the banks, the big banks overall gaining in today's session. Jefferies upgrading the stock to buy from hold, calling it a winner that can keep winning. They also raised their price target to 165 from 149. That stock closing, as you can see, at 147 and change. And one more, Newell Brands, top in the S&P 500, up the most, I think, since February 2022. Canaccord Genuity starting coverage with a buy rating and a $13 price target. The stock closing just below 10, Scarlet.
Yeah, some big names in household, big gains in household names there. You mentioned Rivian, first decline in 10 days, and of course it had gained about 90% in the previous 9 days. So for a change, it is lower. We're also looking at Vox International, the worst performer in the Russell 2000 on day in which the Russell 2000 outperformed the other indexes. The maker of consumer electronics reported a wider quarterly loss and falling sales. Even though supply chain issues have improved, the global retail environment, according to the company, is tough. And And JetBlue losing about 2.6% after Evercore ISI downgraded the airline to underperform, saying its balance sheet has gone from bad to worse, average to worse among its peers. And Viridian Therapeutics, plunging as much as 20%, the most since 2020. Volume was actually 4 times the 3-month daily average after its preliminary data from the ongoing treatment of its chronic thyroid eye disease was fairly positive, but analysts at Jefferies say that there was some confusion over the placebo comparison, investors not quite understanding what the takeaway therefore is for Viridian.
All right, let's take a quick look at what's happened in the yield space. A little bit less action there here on this day as that holding pattern that I think Matt was talking about at the start of the day, that kind of remained in the Treasury space. The 2-year yield slightly higher here on the day by only about 2 basis points, but you still saw some modest buying across the rest of the curve, 5, 10, 20, and 30-year yields all moving lower on the day.
All right, so you do have a more inverted curve in that case, right? And I was seeing that this morning as yields at the short end of the curve were rising, at the long end of the curve are lower, and that just because basically markets have locked in a rate hike for the end of July, and that's why you want to stay away from those twos.
But I think it's interesting too. I mean, because so many people have started to talk about lengthening duration, and there was an interesting note out saying that the whole T-bill play, basically going on that short end and taking the percent return that you get there, just basically is kind of passé now, and that there's a lot more safety, and for that matter, a lot more return, both on price and on coupon, by going further out into the 10-year.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense, I would think, but I guess time will tell in terms of, I am curious how long, where do rates ultimately settle and how long do they stay there, Scarlett? I keep thinking about some of the fundamental changes that are going on in society, whether it's energy changes and, globalization and blah, blah, blah. How does that kind of change and that maybe things are different going forward in terms of where inflation settles?
Yeah, I just want to jump in here because we have some headlines here. I'm going to try to parse through them. Directors at 4 regional feds were looking for a 25 basis point discount rate increase. This is according to the meetings for the minutes for May 22nd to June 14th. The Cleveland, Richmond, St. Louis, and Dallas directors were looking for some kind of rate hike. So we go back to that idea that the different Fed...
Unanimous?
Yeah, the different Fed officials, even though they all vote in the same direction, there's a lot of underlying debate, and it's a constantly evolving discussion.
Yeah, constantly evolving, but I don't know. I feel like all of them, I mean, despite the fact that you're starting to see some divergence in the rhetoric, it still seems that the overarching theme is pretty much the same here. And I know there was a lot hay made when we got the minutes out of the last Fed meeting, but is there any sense that they go into that, July 24th, 25th, whenever it is, 26th meeting, with any real sense of difference or differentiality, I guess, in their opinion about where rates should go?
July 26th.
June, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
June 26th?
That's why we keep you around.
July 26th,
That's
right.
why you keep me around.
Yeah, exactly. You always know what day it is.
By the way, I point out too, we were interviewing a little bit earlier, Andrew left from Citron Research, and apparently I'm told that he actually interviewed with you guys before us, kind of the warm-up act. Thank you. But it was interesting though too, it's funny because he referenced your interview a couple of times during our hours here. He said that you were a little hard on him, Matt.
You know what?
You warmed Matt up. You totally
exactly. You were poking me about it, so I felt like I got to give this guy some hardball questions. But I felt bad because he looks like he's really been battered down.
Yes, that's what I noticed too. He's like a shell of his former self.
I'm sure he'll be okay. I'm just getting a nice.
I think he'll be okay as well. I mean, the story starts, our Bloomberg News story starts, he's driving his Range Rover through Beverly Hills. So I think he's going to be all right.
Be okay.
Well, we talked a lot about collusion, or working with others in terms of a trade. And, he said, he kept making the argument about, when somebody's bullish about something or talks about a stock that they like.
He said, if I want to buy Apple, Romaine, I'm going to call you up and say, I like Apple. Do you like Apple too? Yeah, I like Apple too. Is that collusion? Is that market manipulation?
And the other thing we should point out too, not a lot of people, we don't really know the details of the investigation. We know it has to do with this idea of whether there was sort of some cooperation, let's just use that word, but how deep that investigation goes and whether it even involves him. Remember, this is kind of a pretty broad investigation of short sellers writ large, and it includes basically all the big names that we talk about in the media here. So, who knows exactly what the DOJ knows or SEC knows. Maybe they don't know anything and they're just fishing, but at some point we'll find out maybe.
That's what I felt was lacking. That was the one thing that we were saying to want to know the case. Hey, show of hands, Barbenheimer, who's going to see both Barbie and Oppenheimer?
I will go see one
I'm going to
the
see
other.
one of them.
I'll probably see one of them as well. Everyone say
Who's
which
gonna
one you're
see-
going to see.
I'm going to go see the dark one, which I'm told is Barbie.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go see Barbie. My wife is going to see Oppenheimer in the same studio.
I'm wearing pink on Friday. I'm just warning you all. All right, guys, that's a wrap.
Is that a challenge?
If you wear pink,
It is, actually.
I will
Okay.
wear. We all should wear pink on Friday. All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, YouTube, and of course Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again at 3 p.m. tomorrow.